Legion quotes now make more sense than ever before. ZOTH is said to be known to ultimately win despite defeat even in the ages past, that one old god is meant to remain to ultimately devour Azeroth, and lo and behold, we got brand new quotes from none other than ZOTH right in Dragonflight. We essentially go back in the past and he extracts our knowledge of what happened to him in BFA, meaning he might be able to change the course of all the events. ZOTH talks about the possible corruption of Teldrassil, us more than likely following Iridikron to deep places, and how ultimately they will awaken and with many eyes they will see. I really wonder who has many eyes. Furthermore, old gods are said to never really be able to die. ZOTH was behind the corruption of Deathwing. So was the entire storyline of BFA ultimately just a setup for the real reveal of what will happen in the very near future? Right now, Gamivo has some amazing sales which you can check out with my link in the description. You can get The Witcher, anything Warcraft related, gift cards, and a bunch of games at really amazing prices. Best of all, if you use my code DORON, you can add an additional discount as well. So make sure to click my link in the description and check out Gamivo and get some really great deals. All of us remember how lame that entire ending with ZOTH really was back in BFA. And I know the entire, but that was just a part of this plan, is really a bit of a cope from Blizzard's part. But in my opinion, it is a cope I would be willing to accept, as it might just be a chance for them to actually redeem themselves for just messing up the entire Old God storyline, the return of the Black Empire that just ended with a single pretty non-eventful patch. With all the current hints that we have right now, it seriously seems like that entire BFA thing was literally but a foreshadowing for what is to come now. And without me speculating, let us just get into the hard data that we actually have right directly from Dragonflight. The biggest piece of evidence is the fact that we travel to the times of the Black Empire, which I believe is actually a huge hint that it isn't just some, random Murloc realm, some just meme realm. There is a reason Blizzard decided to add this to the main campaign that everyone will see that actually plays the expansion. Well, technically, we were traveling to the time of the establishment of the Black Empire when they were just battling the elementals. As you can see from the background, the old gods are actually aware of us. It's really like a time travel to the past, but the present at the same time, as these old gods are directly talking to our minds. We know for a fact that 4 old gods are talking to us in this scenario, and we know who is who because most of these quotes are actually recycled from previous expansions, but we actually have multiple brand new quotes that the so-called knowing presence says, and we have deducted that the knowing presence is in fact ZOTH. Pretty much every single thing he says is a huge foreshadowing for what will be coming in the very near future. ZOTH says, "I know you, what you were, what you will yet be." This one is super easy to disregard. I've disregarded it on my first glance as well, but it is actually the craziest out of all of these quotes. Essentially, think about it, he acknowledges that he can see us across the timelines, across 200,000 years. However, what some people have pointed out is that he essentially just reads our mind 200,000 years in the past, and we deliver him everything that will happen in the future, from the fall of the Black Empire to the arrival of the Titans to his imprisonment and defeat in BFA. This means that this time travel thing might just help him prepare better, and that we really goofed in that time travel scenario by delivering him a map into the future on what he should do. Furthermore, since that was his first quote, he says everything that is currently relevant to the actual events in Dragonflight. For example, deeper its roots will reach, welcoming our embrace. Now, I have an entire video on this, but this is more than likely a hint for the recent planting of Teldrassil, as we can see in this cinematic, and how ultimately it will be corrupted. Then we have "Her dreams sing beneath the surface, our dreams, our song." Most likely, this is referring to Azeroth. There is a huge foreshadowing of Azeroth awakening, which is why the Dragon Isles awoke in the first place. She's the connecting point of the Titans, the old gods, and all the cosmological forces. We know she's beneath the surface, she dreams because she's obviously nascent, but ZOTH is implying that he and the old gods are definitely affecting her dream. Now, most interestingly, we have these two quotes, which are both kind of related. "You will follow him to the deep places. The dark waters will flow in his wake. With many eyes they will see again." they will drink and be uplifted. Initially, this didn't make this much sense. This seems like just some random garbage the old gods say, but with the entire Iridikron storyline, it is really just logical. We know he is the incarnate of Earth that worked with some sinister force. He is going somewhere deep underground, and we are going to follow him, as Alexstrasza said in that cinematic at the Vault of the Incarnates. The Dark Waters flow could be referring to Y'Shaarj. I have an entire video on that and the so-called Seven-Eyed Goat if you want to check that out. And the last part of the quote could mean that all the old gods will awaken, as after all, Blizzard on multiple occasions confirmed that old gods can't really die. It's really just not a thing for them. It's not how they work. If they could, they wouldn't really have been imprisoned in the first place. Now, all of these are quotes that you guys have probably followed by this point, but I want to show you something brand new, and I think just mind-blowing. I feel like no one is actually talking about this despite having a ton of potential. So I have an entire video on the possible 5th Old God xal'atath. You can check out that video on the theory if you want all the info, but we're not really going to discuss what xal'atath is, if she's an old god, if it is a claw of Y'Shaarj or whatever, but it is without a doubt super closely tied to the old gods. It is somehow equal to them, and this gives us some super interesting information. Some is in regards to general stuff that gives us context, and the other is particularly about ZOTH. There are some unused quotes that say how a powerful dragon turned into a powerful weapon, referring to xal'atath. xal'atath also talks about how Deathwing was the strongest of the aspects, yet the easiest to corrupt, which is all of course relevant to Dragonflight. However, more importantly, xal'atath talks about Titans, Sargeras, and the Void Lords. As I mentioned in other videos, we defeated the Legion, the main enemy of the Void that was constantly stopping them, and now there is literally nothing that is holding back the Void Lords from reaching us, from reaching Azeroth. If the old gods break free, that could mean the ultimate appearance of their masters. Here is what xal'atath said on one occasion. I long for the day our masters can truly pass into this realm. You have only seen fragments, shadows, the faintest of echoes. Ask the ethereals what one of these manifestations are capable of. If you don't know, what this is referring to is how the Void Lords manifested themselves one time and literally devoured the entire planet of the ethereals. Furthermore, we also learned that the Titans have been trying to do something, but they couldn't. For example, they really went deep in study in order to learn how the old gods really tick, so they can actually remove them, not just imprison them, but they literally could not do anything, and they failed the experiment, creating Gahun, as you can see in him in BFA. Furthermore, recent Dragonflight info shows us that Galakrond was potentially a failed experiment with decay magic as well. Here's a quote that kind of further solidifies this. The research into the void here is commendable, but ultimately futile. How could you possibly understand what the Titans did not? This obviously means that most of the info that we know about the old gods, the Void Lords, is from Titan sources and biased, and the Titans never truly actually understood them, which is why the old gods managed to break the Titan grip over Azeroth, and we might be set to learn the real truth right now in Dragonflight. Now, let's circle this info back to the most important topic of this video, and that is the actual return of ZOTH and what is the true goal of the old gods. From the current info, we know they were sent by the Void Lords to corrupt the planet, but it seems like they're meant to create chaos as well, and only one should ultimately remain. This is what xal'atath says. It is ironic that the weakest of us may be the ultimate victor. Khatun, Yogg-Saron, Y'Shaarj, and well, only one would remain to consume the world that was always meant to be. This is obviously in regards to our first encounter, but here's what xal'atath sort of predicted what would be happening. It was here in the ages past that the God of the Deep lost a great battle to the God of Seven Heads, but as was so often the case, even ultimate defeat worked in ZOTH's favor. This talks about the apparent battle with Y'Shaarj and ZOTH and how ZOTH lost this battle. However, apparently ZOTH, the way he works, is losing in order to win long term, which is why arguably he might be the most successful of the old gods. After all, think about it. It was him that corrupted Deathwing and actually managed to break himself free recently. None of the others had actually done that, and Y'Shaarj, the strongest of the old gods, was really defeated right at the start. So ZOTH is like the mastermind, the one that thinks like 100 steps ahead, and I don't think it is a coincidence that he had these new quotes in Dragonflight. We never truly defeated him, old gods can't truly die, and think about it, why would Blizzard give new quotes to none other than ZOTH in Dragonflight if he was not going to be relevant in the very near future? We also know all the old gods work together despite being enemies at the same time. It's really just the nature of all the beings of chaos. So if ZOTH broke free, which he did once already, he would do his best to awaken his brothers. Furthermore, recent Northrend book revealed that Yogg-Saron is still active, which was just released, so Blizzard is obviously hinting hinting at something, and interestingly enough, there are all the other codes that we always attributed to something else. 5 lanterns to other path could definitely signal the recent old stones of the dragon aspects, which is super relevant, but there is also the quote on how at the hour of her third death, she will usher in our return. This could be referring to both Ashara and Savannah's had her death or defeat quite recently in Shadowlands, which means that after we returned, but there is also the possibility about Ashara. Ashara never really died in any way, but she was defeated twice, first during the Sundering and now most recently. We know she has a bone to pick with ZOTH, and if she returned and actually died, we could legit be having the return of the entire Black Empire on our hands. Of course, all of these at the moment are just hints, speculations, and it's really early about this, but in my opinion, there are just so many of these hints at this point in time that something really just has to happen. Thank you for watching. Check out how Xal'atath was a Titan experiment by clicking on the screen, and check out Doronsmovies Academy for videos of real world history. See you next time!